Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of LANGERR at the Mic. Hope all of you are doing well. Hope everyone is safe and healthy on this beautiful Saturday afternoon in October. Today, we're joined by a very special guest and a former teammate of mine. So this gentleman, he scored over 40 goals and tallied over 2 points per game at the Ontario Hockey Academy of the U18 AAA Hockey League in Ontario. He played 2 years in Junior A in Ontario between the Burlington Cougars and the St. Catharines Falcons. He spent the last 5 years playing Division I hockey at the University of Oklahoma and was named captain of the Oklahoma Sooners last year. Like I said, he's also my former teammate way back when at HCC. He is Paolo De Sousa. How are you today, Paolo?
Hey Mike, how's it going? I'm doing great actually. I'm pretty excited for this. As you mentioned, we go back a long time, back when we were probably 15, 16 years old, maybe 14 too. So time flies, but it's great to be here. I've been keeping up with your podcast for a while, so excited to be on it, and I'm excited to see what you have in store for us.
Yeah, thank you so much again for joining the show, and yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. But like I do with all my guests that appear on my show, I'd like to ask you, how are you? How's your family? Is everyone safe? Everyone healthy? How are you handling the second wave of COVID-19?
I'm grateful, everybody, in my household and all my family and friends, God bless, are healthy. No one's really been severely sick. I myself got a little bit sick while I was overseas a month ago. Quarantining, got myself better. So it all worked out well. But yeah, everyone around here is great. Parents are great. Siblings are great. Friends and family good. How about yourself? How your family? How your parents? How's everyone doing?
Well, thank God that you're well, and thank God that we're well as well. Yeah, just family's doing great, and life is awesome here in Toronto as well. Just again, it's a little bit tough, being grounded and I guess not able to go out and be with people in a like indoor social setting like we're used to. But again, we have to be smart. We got to wear masks. We have to be careful. And thankfully, given all that, everything is fantastic. So let's get right into it. We're going to reminisce about our Harrington College of Canada days in a little bit. But first, I actually just want to talk more about your journey from Laval, Quebec to Harrington, to Ontario, the OHA and Junior A, and then all the way down to Norman, Oklahoma. So talk about that journey and the transition process from one stage of your career to the next.
Wow. It's been a tough ride, but I mean, I wouldn't change a thing about it. I've met, some friendships, made some friendships like yourself, and people along the way that still talk to this day I'll cherish for a lifetime. I mean, I left home. I was just turning 14, so I was still 13 years old. It was very tough, and I'll be completely honest. I say this to everybody. I didn't want to leave. I couldn't let go or detach from the whole, spending time with friends at school every day, going to lunch, that whole friendship part of being a teenager, as opposed to leaving and going to, a boarding school. Keep in mind, all boys boarding school at the time too. So, you're 13, 14 years old. You want to be with your friends and all that. It was tough, but I guess my parents, they never really forced me. They kind of, gave me the options, and my family just kind of just like, hey, like they gave their opinions. I made my own decision, but I knew they all wanted what was best for me, and the passion I had for hockey, which I still have to this day, just got greater and greater as I got older. So it was an easy decision to make. I guess it's something I haven't really told many people either, but the first couple of weeks at Harrington, I was very emotional. Even though I was 45 minutes away in Oka, as you know, from Laval, it was still hard to not be able to watch TV with your parents at night, have dinner with your family. That was kind of the hardest part, detaching from that. But Harrington was an easy transition after I got used to it. Coaches, guys we met there, as you can see, we still talk to this day. Kind of changed my whole experience, and I learned a lot about different cultures. Met people from the U.S., from Europe that I never would have had the chance to meet if I was, still playing local in Laval. So it changed me as a person. Moving on to OHA, same kind of scenario. As we did at Harrington, you're kind of sleeping there. You become a family, a brotherhood, and then before you know it, it's not just your team. It's a school that consists of 80, 120 people, maybe around that. Yeah, for Harrington too. So I guess an easier transition, going from like another school to a school. Going to junior was a bigger step. Then it's you're not living in a dorm. You're not. It's a more mature level kind of thing. You're on your own, and I was fortunate for the 2 years I spent in St. Catharines and Burlington. greatest billets any player could ask for. I still keep in contact with both the players I lived with, the families I still keep in contact, Facebook, Instagram, that kind of thing. They were like second and third families for me, second and third set of parents that welcome me with open arms. And that's something that the hockey world, I mean, I know it happens in all sports, but the hockey community is a little deeper with that. I know a lot of kids that still talk to their billets, and I still visit St. Catharines, and I try to stop in Burlington whenever I can. It's those kind of things that, made me the person I am today. My biggest transition, as you can see, my parents were shipping me away further and further from the house, started in Oka, then we went to Cornwall, then we went to Burlington, then St. Catharines, and then they said, we're gonna go to Oklahoma. So I think that was the biggest culture shock. I'm sure, as most people would know, coming from, a French province to, southern Oklahoma, pretty close, right next to Texas. So you're pretty south. It was hands down the greatest experience in my life. Again, hockey works. You walk into a locker room knowing nobody, and suddenly you have 30 brothers within a couple of weeks. And, that's still, again, talk to people from my freshman year till my senior year. Great friendships, great coaching staff. There's not really anything negative to say about my experience with the football. As you know, you're a Cowboys fan, you watch college football.
We'll get to that.
I've been at the Bell Center, 23,000 people. It's tremendous. It's loud. You're like, wow, like I'm going to a football game now. I was speechless my first time there till I think the halftime, at least until the half. Just looking around, in 80, 90 degree weather at the time, with almost 80, 90,000 people. And just, I wasn't a big, I followed football. I wasn't really a big football fan until I got to OU, and now, I have fantasy football. Now I'm watching the games on the Sundays. Like it became a thing for me, as hockey for us in Montreal is our culture and, our bread and butter. That's what I guess the US is their football. We all know that. So great experience. Hockey was great. The weather, of course, I wasn't shoveling snow in December, January when my parents were. So that was quite the experience there too. But yeah, man, it's I would recommend it to anybody. Anybody who had to. I wouldn't say leave home to go to school. I think it would just be like follow your dreams. When I left home at 13, I didn't think it would take me, to another country, and then most recently Europe for hockey. So 10 years later, I've gone 2 different countries, met hundreds of friends through keeping contact with social media, Snapchat. We have all that throughout. We use that on a daily basis. So I talk to these guys on a daily basis, whether they're in whatever country in Europe or South America. And those are the things I cherish from it. Chase your dreams. You never know how far it's going to go. But you just take it to the end, and maybe you never know. In 10 years, we'll end up on your old goalies podcast talking about the good times.
Exactly, 100%. And just so it just, you see that continuous growth from, like you said, that 13-year-old or 14-year-old boy at Harrington College thinking that, going from living 30 minutes away in Oka compared to Laval is tough. But then you go to the next level to go from Laval / Oka to Cornwall, and then from Cornwall to St. Catharines. So like you said, going further and further away from home. And then from there to all the way down in almost the deep south in Oklahoma. So let me ask you this. So what made you choose the University of Oklahoma after your years at OHA and in Junior A? Why the University of Oklahoma?
I guess it's a kind of pretty straightforward question. Many people don't really understand it when I explain it to them, but my decision was for me to. I made the decision. I thought it was best for me, both on the ice and both for my education. So the decision is, it was pretty clear. I was speaking with some Division III teams, NCAA. Some small schools and some small towns, in Boston, New York. Great schools, great hockey schools, but smaller schools in a small town. And, after playing, even though we're prep schools, I'm sure you can relate to this. It didn't feel like a small prep school. It felt like a big school, like a big family, for how close we were, for how much we all got along. It was a big family, basically. And I wanted more of that. And I wanted, if I was going to go to the US for school or hockey, I wanted the full experience. OU, the 5 years I was there, I went to school with, 2 Heisman Trophy winners, a Heisman finalist, basketball player, Trae Young, some tremendous athletes that are playing at the highest levels now. And that's something that, I sat in class next to them. I walked down, we went to restaurants and we saw them. It was that kind of thing that I wouldn't be able to experience at, like, a small D3 school in the SUNY. Those kind of environments. And again, the hockey there, great hockey, tremendous hockey. I have a handful of friends.
It's growing in the South, right? Like hockey's growing in the southern U.S. more than ever, right?
Yeah, and the Dallas Stars probably helped that a lot with their great playoff run the last couple of months. So even I wanted that full experience, and for me personally, it was more of walking out of off the top of my head a school from the SUNY saying you graduated from here or you graduated from the University of Oklahoma with a degree. So it was a very prestigious school and a school with 40,000 students. I wasn't sure about my decision until I visited my old coach and mentor of mine, Peter Arvanites, was a coach in Oklahoma at the time, and I went there for my tour. Once I stepped foot on campus, I'll be completely honest, that was it. I didn't have to take a second step. Once I looked around and saw what I could have been, where I could have been walking, and that kind of experience, kind of stuff you see on movies, as people would say. And I was sold right away. We had a great locker room hockey wise. We were treated very well. But the school, the campus, that vibe is something I truly, truly wanted to experience. And there was a kid at the time I knew that was playing at OU and, reached out to me. He helped me with the tour and everything. And he was another Canadian kid and just, made it clear that it's not, people would complain or say that, it's not the hockey you should be playing. But, when I came out of there with the 5 years of hockey experience, a whole culture change that I respect and understand more of. It was kind of a no-brainer knowing that I was getting the best of both worlds. That was pretty much it for me. I wanted to be able to still play hockey, and walking out of the rink in mid-December in flip-flops and a t-shirt isn't a bad deal either. So
that's the dream. That's always that's always been honestly my dream when playing hockey. It's my favorite is just to go, to or from the rink either or for practice in the playoffs in April. And if you have like a really nice day in April in Montreal or Canada, and you just get to go to the rink in flip flops, or even in September, like for a tryout or something. I mean, usually we'll be wearing a suit, I guess, for a tryout or preseason game, but still just that ability to wear flip flops to the rink, going to practice and all that. Yeah, like that's awesome that you got to experience that. But let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you a kind of a two-folded question because you might have answered this a little bit already. But if you didn't, what would you say is your best part of being? What's the best part about being a Sooner hockey player? And which season do you think was your best season of the 5 years that you were at Oklahoma?
Well, it's a tough question. I'm going to answer the Sooner part first. The best feeling about it was, as someone who can relate to it, it felt like being a Montreal Canadian. That's how it felt wearing that logo, being considered a Sooner, not only just a hockey player, but, within the athletic program there. Obviously, we weren't the football team, we weren't the basketball team, and we all respected one another. So it was a great kind of bonding between most athletes. To walk into like certain, like Montreal, you go to like your local gas station, you go to like a dépanneur, all that stuff, and you'll see Habs stuff on, Habs flags, Habs t-shirts, blah, 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 or Montreal Canadiens this. It was that kind of atmosphere in OU, in Norman itself, because it's a college town. And, from older people who are like, old fans who have been there since the start, football or hockey-wise, basketball, tailgating, the feeling that you get, I guess, felt wearing that jersey, wearing that logo, and being able to say you were a Sooner was literally like saying I'm a Montreal Canadian. That's how I would compare it. And I'm a hockey player. I obviously love hockey, and Montreal Canadiens are my team. So it obviously to play for the Habs would be an honor. So that's how I felt carrying that. Maybe it's a little different for me because I did come from a hockey culture. Some kids come from there's teams in California or different places across the country that are not like, hockey, they don't bleed hockey like Montreal. And I guess for me, it was a very tight connection because it was an honor. I was proud, when people would come to our games, that you're wearing the logo, or when you're outside the rink in public, you see people who you notice you from the games, or, just see what you're wearing kind of thing. You kind of stand out a little bit. And the respect amongst the whole community, again, it felt like being a Montreal Canadian. Maybe the media here is a little bit harsher. I'll give that for free, but it was one of those. It was an honor. It was a different, special feeling. It's something I'll cherish for the rest of my life, and I know that when I go back, visit for potential football games or hopefully watch the hockey team down the road, it'll be an honor just still to be there and say, a Sooner alumni, and I was able to wear the crimson and cream proudly for 5 years.
Yeah, so I'm going to throw this question at you because obviously I have to do a little bit of research here. And I happen to notice that you played 2 games in the 2015-2016 playoffs with Oklahoma, but you have 26 penalty minutes. What happened there? What happened there? There's definitely a story behind that. Tell us what happened.
Actually, it's funny you say that because I didn't answer your other question about my favorite season. So my favorite season is, I think, overall was my freshman year. Which would be that 2015-2016 season. I came in as I was 20 years old, recently or shortly turned 21, and didn't know much about the South. I'm just some, Montreal kid coming from Canada to be like, hey, let's go play some hockey and figure out where, the horses are, kind of thing. I knew nothing about Oklahoma. It was just very different for me. And I met, the seniors there. The culture at the time was hands down the best culture I've ever been a part of on a hockey team, and that still hasn't changed. Not high expectations, just the way I was welcomed, the way the players treated each other. It was a lot of stuff that went without being said. You didn't have to repeat. It was all just say it one time, and even if you said it one time, it's already one time's too many. You should already know. So the seniors there were very, they were older guys. I walked in at 20 years old, and there's 3 guys on my team that were engaged, so that was something different for me, being in a culture of more mature men. I've always felt like I've been mature, but now, I'm the kid and there's 25-year-old men there. I was still starting to get my, my facial hair, and these guys had full grown beards. So different points of our lives. And so the way they welcomed us, the way the culture was, the way it ran, it was just a lot of everybody, held themselves accountable for mistakes, the pros, the cons, and it didn't make, someone like Mike, for example, have to take care of, one defenseman or another forward. They don't have to look after each other. We always did, of course, as a family. A hockey team's always tight, but we were on top of our game. Everybody knew what they had to do, and nobody was slacking, and that made it my favorite year. So back to that game, it was an unfortunate way to end our season, basically. Wait, you say 2016 or 20?
Yeah, so it's the end of the 2015-2016 playoffs where you played 2 playoff games that had 26 penalty minutes.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. Yikes. So we lost that game pretty bad. I'm not going to say the score because I don't think it should be said. You might think it's a different sport. It was a bad game. It was unfortunate. I think I got a penalty early in the game, clear penalty, and puck got dumped in the corner. Goalie went out to play it, and I just kind of snuck up behind him, didn't see me coming, lifted his stick, and as I lifted his stick, he decided to backflip, do a dive, roll over the whole 9 yards, and I got a penalty for, I believe it was hooking or slashing, and I kind of just was like, look, the goalie, was kind of mouthing off of me, and I was just kind of confused. I was like, really, like, we're already down by, I think, 4 at the time, and I was like, really, like, looking at the ref, like, come on, like, I looked at the player, and I was like, I literally said out loud, like, I didn't even hit you that hard. And the ref decided to give me another 10-minute misconduct because he thought I was answering him back in a way, which I understand, but wasn't looking in his direction. It was a tough bounce. And then on the way off, I believe he gave me another one. So that was a tough bounce, obviously. Not something I do often. Obviously, it's not something that a player wants to do, especially in a game of nationals. But the refs were out for it to get us that game. We had a couple of guys get thrown out for no reason, which was unfortunate, but it is what it is. Just look back at it now as a life lesson.
That's hockey, baby.
Exactly.
Whether it's the NHL, whether it's Harrington, whether it's Oklahoma, whether it's junior, no matter what, you're always going to have refs that are out to get you. And you got to overcome those challenges. But here's another challenge that you had to overcome that I would like you to talk about if you're willing to share. You suffered a pretty devastating leg injury in 2018, correct? So.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if you don't mind, just talk about your recovery process and the biggest challenges that you had to overcome and what you learned from that experience.
Before I guess getting started, most people wouldn't believe this. I'm gonna say it now, but it was probably the greatest life lesson and changed me into for the better and into the person I've become today. So now this is going back. This is going back 3 years. So just over 4 years. I'm about to be 4 years, 3 4 years. I tore my ACL playing soccer. Um, it was a tough bounce. It wasn't even, somewhere, in hockey you get hit from behind. It was just a freak accident that I replay in my head every day, as anyone would. Just, stretch, try to reach for the ball and do a move that I've done for years. I played soccer since I was, 8 years old. And unfortunate, the turf, my cleat, it just, it got stuck in the turf and my knee just, tore my ACL. It just popped. It was a tough bounce considering I was entering my junior year at OU. And I was expected to fill like a bigger role. We had just lost a big class. I was already at the time playing a pretty good role in the lineup, and was expected to fill some bigger shoes. So it was July 17th. Never forget the date. And unfortunately, our season was starting. First week of September. So I was lucky enough. Had some friends who my best friend's mom works in the hospital in Montreal. So I got an MRI within I think 72 hours. I was very fortunate for that. And I was told that a high grade partial tear of the ACL was the diagnosis. So that was devastating. I wasn't able to bend my knee much. I was pretty, my parents told me for years, you're at school now playing hockey, stop playing soccer, you're going to get hurt. Obviously we're all stubborn growing up as kids. So you learn your lesson eventually. Of course it sucked, but so going into the season, a month and a half later with a freshly torn ACL, ligament kind of half torn, I decided to opt out of surgery, or not opt out of it. I decided there was a chance from what my research and my doctors had told me that you can rehab from a torn ACL without surgery. I didn't know much about it, but I played hockey and soccer. I had strong legs, strong ligaments and everything. So they said I had a better chance, and I'm young. Went ahead and decided to play my junior year with a brace and torn ACL. I had, surprisingly enough, one of my better years statistically, not just number wise, but on the ice. I wasn't able to explode, and my game is a lot about speed and moving the puck quick. Didn't really have that edge anymore, so I focus on the little things defensively, like face-offs and being in the right areas in the zone. So I knew that when I got back to it, I worked on that, and my offensive my game will still be there. So work just to become a better two-way player. And yeah, I don't know how, now that you make me realize it, that season was a very tough season. I was very,
If I may, sorry, just if I may say that, was that the year that you got 23 points in 27 games or 8 points in 13 games?
27, 23 and 27.
So 6 goals, 17 assists, 23 points, 27 games, all with a torn ACL is pretty impressive, I must say.
Yeah, it was pretty. I'm pretty fortunate for the guys that were around me. I give a lot of credit to, first off, my parents and my siblings to help me get through that. And the hardest part about that season was also knowing that at the end of it, I was going into surgery. So I had planned it for this, the following summer at the end of that season to get to surgery. And hopefully by then, my knee was strong enough that I didn't need it. And when I got to that day to make a decision, my knee was strong, but it wasn't stable. It would buckle a lot. It was missing, like the ligament was just hanging in there basically. So I believe it was, for the long term and the long run, if I wanted to keep playing hockey, which I did at the time, I decided to get the surgery. That was the hardest 6 months of my life, and I don't wish that upon my arch enemy. Being, confined to the bed for the first, couple of days, close to a week, not being able to move, I started wondering if my first couple of days, like, hey, did the doctor even do this right? Like, my leg is still straight. You start questioning a lot of things, and going to surgery, a lot of people have surgeries like those, or, any knee surgery or any serious surgery. And, you never know if it's going to be the same. You never know if you're going to, knock on wood, walk again or skate the same again. As, a player who I pride myself on my skating ability and my skating style. And it worried me. It worried me a lot. I had most people in my life were obviously positive. But there's a handful of negative ones that we're saying, you'll never be the same. You'll never walk again. Don't ever think about playing hockey again because there's no point. Like, you'll never be the same. All that stuff, which I've been used to since a kid. Everyone deals with negativity, but I kind of use it to fuel me, and it fueled my comeback is where I go with it. Again, I give a lot of credit to my teammates and my coaching staff at the time, my parents, obviously. It was a roller coaster of emotions. Mentally, I felt like before my surgery, I was like a little boy, and now after that surgery and everything I've gone through with my knee, I feel like like a 50-year-old man with all the experience and knowledge and all that I've gained. Self-confidence also is one thing. I lost a lot of confidence when I was, not able to bend my knee or walk more than 10 feet. When you're not able to run around with your dog in the backyard, that's when you start questioning certain things. So that was a little tough. But again, the best support anybody could ever ask for. It's changed my aspect on life. It's changed my aspect on, now if, for example, this water bottle, if it falls, I'm not going to get mad that it fell. I'm going to be more like, okay, like, what can I learn from it next time? Instead of, leaning it on my phone right now, I'll just make sure that the lid is shut and it's separated. So I look at things in a way different perspective. I also was fortunate enough to become more, to find my faith in, God, and become more religious, during that phase. I was always religious, but, wearing a cross and all that, and that kind of thing doesn't make you just full religious saying, I wear my cross, so I'm good to go. Like, I never really believed. I didn't have faith. And that gave me a lot of, it opened my mind to, letting God in and realizing that everything does happen for reasons, the good, the bad, and every bad thing that happens slingshots you forward for something tremendous that you can't even see yet. So, the things that it took away from me with my surgery, I was like, well, I'm not gonna be able to do this ever. A year, 2.5 years later now, I'm doing things that I wouldn't have been able to do prior to my surgery with a good knee, both on the ice and in life. So it changed a lot of my perspective and myself as a person, obviously.
So is that, I'd say, your biggest advice you'd want to give to any athlete, young, old, professional, amateur, that deals with a devastating injury? Just gain a positive perspective on it and learn from that experience. What would you say is your best advice that you'd give to someone that suffers a devastating injury like that?
Mental game. I think the hardest part where I got the strongest, I obviously got strength back in my knees, and they're good now, but the strongest part I gained was my mental strength and my mental ability to be able to, not push away the negative. You still got to take the negative. It's not negative, but, realistic. I'm very optimistic, but I'm also realistic. So that's where I think I'm a little different than most people. So I was very optimistic, where like, I'm going to be playing in 6 months, blah, 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 blah. But I was realistic where, I was like, hey, well, I'm still confined to a couch. So, I got to look to tomorrow what I'm going to be doing for PT today and my therapy instead of, looking down the road. So it's like just like digging a hole, man. You just got to, it's one shot at a time, shovel. And it's tough. It breaks you down. And there's times where in the injuries where I gave up multiple times. I won't lie. When I realized I couldn't, or when I, kind of hurt myself a little bit trying to push it during my rehab, that's where I started getting, frustrated for someone, who likes to win, who wants to, do his best and always be the best he can be. It's hard when you can't walk. So you got it's a mental game. As much as it brings you down, just know that tomorrow's better and the next day is going to be better. And that, when it's a 6 month, they told me shouldn't have been able to play. I should have waited. I think it was a year. They wanted 11 to 12 months. I played my first game 6 months after surgery. So
yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, it wasn't. I was kind of fortunate for my age. I'm in shape. It was a little bit different. It's different for everybody, but they weren't expecting me to be ready after 6 months. And I had the perfect support. I had the right mindset, and I had the right people pushing me in the right path. And for those who get, I realize a lot of I don't want to say real or fake people, but it was more of just like the people who really, really, deeply cared and deeply showed, people from across the world, some messaging me, or people going out of the way to do things that are priceless, not even money wise, or literally priceless, to make sure that, you're still there, or you're still mentally stable, because at the time I wasn't, and I dealt with a lot of things at once that obviously, everybody has things going on, and the surgery just kind of piled on that. So when you have the right support, you have the right mindset, just gamble on yourself. You bet on yourself, and you'll win every time. So just stay positive, and just don't give up, because you already went through the pain. You got the surgery, you had the injury, you might as well get rewarded for it, right?
Yeah, listen to Paolo, people. He knows. Listen to him. But all right, so let's try to lighten the mood a little bit here. Let's go way back before Oklahoma, before Junior A, before OHA, before I did my undergrad in kinesiology, before I played junior double A for Lac Saint Louis or whatever, at Harrington College of Canada, an all boys hockey only school. What can possibly go wrong? Well, let's talk about. There's a lot of things that I guess we maybe shouldn't talk about, but let's talk about our favorite stories from Harrington College. The one that stands out to me that I remember I'd say like that, at least that was on, I guess, I think maybe your old Facebook, is like you microwaving a Pepsi bottle or something, and it just exploding all over your room, and just like that's one that stands out to me. What would you say is one of your favorite stories?
I guess the best part about this is knowing that we have a lot of guys from Harrington on Facebook. So this is gonna be some good times here, some good laughs. But I think the memories, a lot of you think about what can possibly go wrong. Actually, a lot, if you want to be honest. But
it's a rhetorical question.
Exactly. When I think about Harrington, there's obviously the dumb things we did. I think more about I think about the funny times and the good times with the guys we had, waking up at 7 a.m. I think I still have a picture of this on Facebook somewhere. And Andre put like 3 rolls of tape around one. I forgot whose stick it was. I don't remember whose stick it was, but it was like a roll of clear, a roll of black. And it was like thick. It was really thick, and just puts in the kid's stall, and just messes with kid, like little things like that would make me, at the time, I guess I'd be like, wow, we would laugh. But like now I look back at it, like those are the little things. Or like, obviously there's being in the classroom with the guys you get dressed with every day, you take the bus with every day, was bar none. You got guys like was Matthew Chase there when you?
I think that's before I was there.
Before you, okay, yeah. So that's with you 17. So you got Kane Fedor, you got Goodell, we got Andre. What a team! Wow. I can't even pinpoint one single specific memory. We had guys yelling or fighting, literally the Russians fighting each other in their locker room before games and yelling in Russian, and us.
But then hugging it out after, just because we won or whatever, just for
Actually, because I think Eric Lacone walks in, and then they all go straight up like they're the military, because when that guy walks in, he brings in a big presence. But
I don't know about you, but Eric Leconte is one of my favorite, I'd say top 3 of my favorite coaches, because as mad as he would get, and I remember this, I'd say 2 of my favorite stories, at least regarding hockey, it was the time where there was a bit of that the technicality of I think you were one of the guys that played too many games at a double A or triple A or something, so weren't eligible to play Division I high school in the Dodge Cup or whatever. And we had so we played in the first period, just had a really, really rough go in the first period to start the game, and then we come back in the dressing room, and he just loses it, just we can't even complete a effing pass, and throws the garbage can, voice crack included, and throws a freaking garbage can all across the room. But yeah, just like I said, Eric was one of my favorite, and that was within that story. That was, I think, also in the same tournament where the Zamboni broke down, kind of like the one that was on fire in
Yeah.
Rochester last week. Zamboni just like breaks down, just like completely messes up the ice. So here we are, like we're all dressed, ready to go, but with no ice to play on. So we have to get undressed. And at the last second, we have to go to the home of the Chicoutimi Saguenay or something to play our game there, where, I mean, it was a close one. It was a close one, and we played a tough close game. But we lost by like 4 because I gave up like 3 goals in the last like 30 seconds, but that's another story. But yeah, just Eric Leconte. Like, I know you have a bunch of other awesome Eric Leconte stories, but yeah, he was one of my favorite coaches personally for my playing days.
Yeah, I mean, I still talk about him to this day to players at OU. We all like we're doing right now. We all reminisce about our favorite coaches who taught us the biggest lesson. For me, it was definitely Eric and Martin. Those
Oh yeah,
were two of my
Martin,
two
of course,
coaches.
yeah.
Obviously, I think I had Eric a little bit more on a personal level because he coached my team for 2 out of 3 years. So it's a little different. Martin was obviously a part of everything there. So he's a big mentor also. But Eric, Eric, one of the funniest stories I have of him was probably one of the first times I think walked into his office. So I sat down. I'm still a little kid, and he's this 6'4" good-looking hockey player sitting in front of you, knowing he's a new
Former
coach.
first-round pick of the Chicago
Exactly.
Blackhawks in the early '90s. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and he's sitting there, and I'm looking around his office, and he's got pictures of himself when he played in Europe and in Italy and Switzerland, I believe. And then there's, at the time I wasn't too familiar with a bunch of things, so I noticed one picture. He had like the flame helmet, like the fire on his helmet. So I looked, I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. I was like, so like you have that, like your whole team has it? Like, no. He's like, only certain players have it. It's like, oh, okay, like, so who gets it? Like, it's like, oh, like the top scorer in the league. And just like looks at me dead eyes, like, oh, okay, like, and looks at me and just gives me like a little smirk. And that was like one of the first encounters I had with him, but it started, I died. I started laughing. It was hilarious. And he was just straight faced. Like, he's like, that's not the only one I got too. So it was that kind of like, that was that kind of vibe which started with him. But I say to this day, I speak highly of him every time his name's brought up or he talks about Harrington. He turned me, into the player I am now, and he's a big part of it. 14 when I went there, I was on the midget team, which consisted of 16, 17-year-olds. You guys weren't there at the time, but I was obviously very young, and guys, driving themselves to the rink. I'm still 14, no facial hair, no hair on my body almost, and still, I was a smaller kid, obviously. And he took me under his wing. He made me. He was really tough on me. And at first, I you come home from hockey, and I'd be like, Dad, like, the coach is hard on me. Like, he's really tough. He's just like, blah, blah, blah. And my dad was, my dad's coached hockey for, 30, 40 years. So he knows his hockey. And he was kind of just like, hey, like, he's like, either you can take it or you listen, you bounce back, or he's like, don't, he's trying to make you a better hockey player. This is someone, who knows his hockey, well respected, obviously drafted in the first round, as you mentioned. So, he's like, you got to learn from it. He's like, you can either, cry and whine, or he's like, you can learn from it and battle through it. And that kind of changed my whole perspective on, instead of thinking he was picking on me, he was trying to, if I did something wrong, he was let's say, yelling at me or on me because he expected me to do better as a 14-year-old. And then as, a 16, 17-year-old on the way out on the U17 team. So he knew, off the ice, he knew he draw the line between, his friendship. He was a great guy off the ice. He was, but when you walk in that room, you can, they say the expression, you hear a pin drop, like that happened on every
Yeah,
team.
just he's one of those guys that just I find like he commands like respect, or just like when he's like as a coach, or just he has a presence about him, that just brings the team together and makes you want to play for him essentially.
Exactly. He was hands down, one of the better coaches I've had, if not the best coach. And him and Martin as a duo were, a unique combo because, they had different personalities, different ways of getting at you. Martin was obviously one of the harder ones, and, he demanded it. He wanted it now yesterday. He didn't want it, I'll never forget one practice. Actually, now I think about Eric. Martin, actually. This was Martin. We were, I think he brought me up for a college practice. I'm excited, like, nice. It's like, move up the college team. So we were doing like, in zone power play on both sides. And my team was on the power play. And I think he took a shot. I think Andre gave me a one-timer. He's practicing with us. And my stick broke. I was like, oh no, like stick breaks. And no one expected you to bring your sticks like it's the bench. that morning, I guess my brain wasn't, on point, and it was in the locker room. So I got off the ice, walked around, got the stick, and then came back. And as I was coming back on, the puck went to where I was supposed to be standing, and Martin was just like turned around, like, what is going on? Like, why is there nobody there? And then like pointed at me, like he's going to get his stick. He looked at me, he's like, what are you doing? And he started yelling, like, I was like, I'm going to get my stick. He's like,
You son of a whatever, you know.
He's like, you don't bring 2 sticks to hockey. You bring 1 stick. Like, he's like, you're not ready. Get off the ice. I was like, no,
you're not ready. Get off the ice. Get off the ice. You're not ready to play.
Yeah. Exactly that. And I was like, I'm sorry. He's like, no, there's no sorry. He's like, get off the ice. It was like, one of my first practices in a while. I was like, I messed it up.
And you're just a poor 15-year-old kid that just gets called up from the high school level to the collegial to practice with the collegial team, and it's just like, yeah, first practice, exciting, yeah. And just like freaking gets booed off the ice for getting his stick off the bench. But anyway,
see, and that's where the way they treated us, like Martin treated all of us like we were, like college players. So that made me realize, getting older, that I'm not gonna face anything tougher, but I know I'm already in the group or the age group. I'm mature enough to be there because I was already, being treated like that at a younger age, and I think that was a big part of how they all developed us there at Harrington, especially those coaches that we had and we mentioned right now.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for that, and thank you again so much for joining the show. We have a couple more minutes here, but again, because this was coming, this is a Dallas Cowboys and football channel as well. So and you went to Oklahoma, so I do have to ask you, what do you have to say about your fellow Sooner and first round 17th overall pick by Dallas Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb?
He's a great player. I think. Can you hear me? Did it cut off? Oh, sorry. I thought my headphones cut off.
No, you're good.
He's a great player. I had the pleasure of watching him the last couple of years at OU. With great quarterbacks, obviously. With Kyler, they had great seasons. He's tremendous. He's got tremendous speed. He's tremendously athletic. He gets up in the air. He's a great player. It's unfortunate that we talk about the Cowboys, how tough injury with a great player with Prescott. I think that hurts him maybe a little bit because they were playing well. Prescott is one of the best, I'd say one of the best quarterbacks offensively in the league. So as a person, even on campus, I've walked by him. I've seen him at when you go out for drinks or whatever. He's a humble guy too. There's a lot of players that walk around like I'm me. Who I am. And this guy, he's different. He's kind of like, you're obviously going to recognize him. He's a very noticeable person, a recognizable person, but he doesn't look for that spotlight, at least from what I've seen. I may be wrong. I know we're all different when we're in public and when we're with our friends, but I from what I've heard, for the most part, he's a very humble person. He's like down to earth. So he has tremendous skill. I said it when they drafted him. I was looking forward to that draft. And when it came up to the Cowboys pick, I said, how fitting would it be if, he ended up playing in AT&T Stadium every week. So it's crazy how that worked out. But, yeah, a great player, another, OU Sooner that goes through their football program, even their basketball program, and is able to make a difference at the pro level.
Yeah, so between CeeDee Lamb, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, what would you say is the Sooner alumni that you cheer for the most?
Player?
Yeah, what Sooner football player, maybe even throw basketball in there. Who do you cheer for the most?
I guess maybe if you asked me this before my NFL fantasy draft, I would answer differently. But right now, Kyler Murray's my quarterback in football, my fantasy team. So I'm going to have to go with Kyler Murray. I follow them all, though. I'm pretty I like Baker. He's having a great season as well. I know he took a lot of heat last year with how the Browns did and how he did personally. He didn't have that good of a year. But Trey Young too. Trey Young was there last year or 2 years ago. A tremendous basketball player as well. Went from high school 1 year at OU and then straight to Atlanta. So that's a huge jump, a huge athlete as well. Huge player, huge name. We got Buddy Hield. That was from my freshman year. And sophomore year, he was a great basketball player. The pleasure of watching him in person. But the fact that now we're down to one player. I also like Mark Andrews, big Mark Andrews fan. I think he's a great player. He's great. I even, my roommate and I, my best friend, one of my best friends at OU, Joe Volo, we said it for, the 2 years he's at OU. Well, he's going to be a great tight end in the NFL. He has that. He was a monster in college, and you have the big players, the huge players, and he was just like he's large for a tight end in the NFL, and he was already that large in college. So we knew he would excel at the college pro level, which he is. But Kyler Murray, he's helping carry my fantasy team right now, so he's gonna be number one.
Fair enough. But yeah, hey, Paolo, thank you so much for joining the show again. This was a lot of fun. I do want to ask you just one more question. So you graduate the University of Oklahoma now, and you're like we talked about a little bit before, you're looking to play in Europe, and you went there for a couple of tryouts. So I want you to coaches, or if any coaches happen to listen to the show, I want you to give a scouting report on yourself and tell your future head coach or general manager why they should sign Paolo De Sousa to be their top centers, one of their top centers.
I like that. I like putting you on the spot like that. I appreciate that. I'm kidding. No, yeah, I'm the best way to put myself, best explanation, I'm a guy you want on your team and a guy you hate to play against. Kind of like a Marchand or a Gallagher, that kind of energy. I'm a great two-way player. I pride myself on face-offs and defensive zone coverage. Hence why, when I played in St. Catharines, I was voted best two-way player in the division. I'm a great skater. Skating's always been my strength, even after surgery, because the knees went back to normal. But I can move the puck well. I'm great on the power play. I'm not scared of getting hit. I'm not scared to give any hits. I've always played an aggressive game, even at a 5'10", 165 frame. I like to play big. I play aggressive. Or my emotions on my sleeve. I hate losing, and that doesn't just really work for hockey. I feel like in everything I do, I'm a very competitive person. I'm very passionate, and I'm a great leader. I've been a leader and a captain or a leader. In most places I've played, I've always been, respected for my leadership. I've always tried to make my teammates better. And, I always believe, I'm a firm believer in great team chemistry. When, you can have the greatest team in the league and not the best team chemistry, you will not beat the team that has the greatest team chemistry. And I pride myself on, a winning locker room attitude, and that wins games.
And you can insert a shot at the Toronto Maple Leafs on that last statement there, I guess, based on last year. But anyway, I'll let it be known to if any coaches are listening, let it be known that Paolo's your guy to sign. So hey, thank you so much again for joining the show today, Paolo, and of course to our audience. If you enjoy having these awesome guests on the show, then be sure to subscribe to my channel at Mike Langer. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, on YouTube. That will be in the description below. And also follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. This has been a Saturday afternoon edition of Langer at the Mic. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and see you again next time.